Hey there and welcome. Today, we're going to level up your English by looking at 7 super common linking words and their more professional, business-ready versions. This is all about making sure you sound just as sharp in a meeting as you do when you're just chatting with your friends.
I mean, think about it for a second. You probably don't, right? And a huge part of that is choosing how you connect your ideas. It's what makes you sound natural and effective. And today, we're going to zero in on the exact words that can make all the difference.
There's actually a name for this skill. It's called code switching. It's basically about picking the right code for the right situation. And as you can see, it's a real balancing act. If you're too formal with friends, you might sound kind of stiff. But if you're too casual at work, you might not sound as credible as you'd like. So to really see this in action, let's dive into 2 stories about a trip to Portugal.
Okay, first up, let's hear the casual version. I want you to imagine you're just catching up with a friend, maybe over coffee. Listen closely for those simple, everyday words they're using to string their thoughts together.
Okay, here we go. It was an amazing trip, but I'm struggling with jet lag. I'd fly business class or maybe break up the trip. We wanted comfortable weather, so we traveled in May. See? You can hear how words like but, or, and so just make the story flow so easily. And it continues. I'd love to go back because there's so much to see. I enjoyed sweets like pastéis de nata and seafood. Everything is beautiful, especially the tiles. It's simple, it's clear, it's exactly how you'd expect a friend to talk.
All right, now let's switch gears completely. We're talking about the same topic, Portugal, but this time I want you to imagine it's being presented in, say, a formal tourism report. Listen for how much the language changes to sound way more authoritative.
Ready? Here's the professional version. It's popular in summer as well as winter. Tourists can enjoy either a coastal holiday or a trip to the mountains. In fact, Portugal was voted a top destination to visit by car. Wow, did you hear that immediate shift in tone? It just sounds so much more like an official report.
And here's the rest of it. Portugal has mild winters. As a result, it's popular year-round. Since it borders Spain, many tourists are Spanish. International tourism is down, whereas domestic tourism is booming. See? It's the same topic, but the language gives it this entirely different, much more analytical and professional feel.
Okay, so we've heard both versions in the wild. Now, for the really fun part, let's get in there and break down those 7 word pairs we just heard so you can see exactly how they work and when to use them.
First on the list, adding information. Look, we all use and constantly. It's essential, but if you ever find yourself saying and over and over, swapping in as well as is a fantastic way to add a little variety and formality. So, it's popular in summer and winter becomes the slightly more elevated, it's popular in summer as well as winter. Next up, showing contrast. But is one of the most common words in English, which is exactly why using whereas can really make you sound more polished. It signals a very direct, formal comparison. So, international tourism is down, but domestic tourism is booming. Sounds so much more analytical when you say international tourism is down, whereas domestic tourism is booming.
All right, what about showing alternatives? We usually just use or. Well, the more formal structure is either or. Now, the key here is all about balance. Whatever type of word or phrase follows either must have the same grammatical structure as what follows or. This keeps your sentences super clear. So you might connect 2 nouns, like either a holiday or a trip, or 2 actions, like either visit the coast or travel to the mountains.
Now, this one has a key structural difference. So is a pretty simple connector, right? It just links a cause and effect together in one sentence. As a result, on the other hand, is more formal and way more flexible. You can use it to connect 2 parts of a sentence or, and this is a great tip for more impact, you can use it to start a brand new sentence to really emphasize that outcome.
When you're giving a reason, look, because is totally fine in almost any situation. But if you really want to kick the formality up a notch, especially at the beginning of a sentence, since is an excellent choice. Since Portugal borders Spain, many tourists are Spanish, just sounds more like a formal report than starting with because.
To give examples, we often default to like. The formal equivalent that sounds a lot sharper is such as. The rule for both is actually really simple. They have to be followed by a noun or a gerund, which, don't worry, is just a fancy word for a verb that acts like a noun by adding ing at the end. For instance, activities such as visiting Alfama. Easy, right?
And finally, let's talk about adding some punch, some emphasis. Now, especially and in fact aren't direct one-to-one replacements, but they serve a similar purpose. Especially is great for highlighting that one thing is more important than the others in a group. In fact, is what you use to drop in an extra, maybe even surprising piece of info that really strengthens your main point. It's the kind of phrase that makes people lean in and listen a little closer.
So, after all that, what does this really add up to? Well, I like to think of it as your communication superpower. It's the ability to consciously and confidently choose the perfect word for the right moment to get the exact effect you're looking for.
And trust me, this really matters. It's about so much more than just sounding smart. It's about communicating with real precision, being able to adapt to any audience you're talking to, and just adding more variety and color to your English. It's a skill that honestly pays off in every single conversation you have.
So, the only question I have left for you is this. Which of these new, more professional words are you going to try using first? Whether you go with whereas, or since, or as a result, the absolute best way to make it your own is to just get out there and start putting it into practice.